Let me ask you a question. Have you ever written yourself so deep into a story that you suddenly realize you had no idea how it was supposed to end? Hello, fiction babes and storytellers. Welcome to Habits of a Writer, the podcast where we talk about the good habits that lead to a finished manuscript. I'm your host, Portia Leivette. I myself have written several novels, self published too, and currently working on the next one. As a kid, road trips were a natural part of my summers. From the back seat, my job was to navigate. I unfolded that Rand McNally map and called out directions to our destination. That map was a promise. We were going somewhere, and we'd know when we arrived. Life is a series of journeys, and having a destination is how you know when you've reached the goal. It took me a long time to accept that writing works the same way. I just wanted to sit down and write the story, but now I can clearly see why my first published novel was way too long. I didn't know how the story was supposed to arrive at the ending, so I just kept writing and writing and writing. First, let me tell you what plotting isn't. It's not a strict structure that says you have to write your story exactly as planned. Plotting is simply a map. You follow the route, but it's okay to venture off onto a few side roads along the way. For a long time, plotting felt like something I did while I was already deep into the story. There were many nights of staring at the computer screen, wondering what to write next. What I eventually learned was this: plotting is the work that happens before you start writing. That shift saved me time and creative energy because I understood my characters, the world I was building, and which scenes were actually needed to tell the story. Even if you're a pantser, which is someone who writes as they go, you still have an idea of where the story is headed. For me, I often knew the ending I wanted. Where I got lost was the emotional journey to get there. My goal with this podcast is to help you avoid staring at the blank white screen and instead use your creative time and energy to move your manuscript forward. When I applied these lessons and completed my fourth manuscript, the difference was obvious. The story flowed more easily. I understood the beginning, the midpoint, the rock bottom, the epiphany, and the ending. I knew my main character and the supporting cast. I could keep track of who had a blue couch and who had a beige one. And trust me, those are the details readers notice. What didn't change was my creative voice. I still sit at my computer and tell the story I set out to create. Watching it unfold while learning the craft didn't take away my joy. What it did was help me get better. If you're new to writing or new to plotting, then let's talk about a few different plot structures. Think of these as different kinds of maps. One of the most popular is the three act structure. Act one is the setup, Act two is the confrontation, Act three is the resolution. You'll hear me mention plot points like the inciting incident, the midpoint, the rock bottom. Each one of each one of these moves the story forward with intention. I usually recommend for beginners Save the Cat. It's originally based on screenwriting. This method uses story beats like The Catalyst, All Is Lost, and The Dark Night of the Soul. It's great for learning pacing and rhythm. Then there's Plot and Structure by James Scott Bell. This approach focuses on scene threads, character arcs, and world building, placing each scene where it belongs. And the hero's journey. Think Star Wars, Luke Skywalker. Or, my favorite, The Heroine's Journey by Maureen Murdoch. Since I read about women's emotional growth, this framework explores how women follow outward success, only to realize fulfillment comes from turning inward and reclaiming the self. So, which one should you choose? That depends on you and how your creative brain works. And if all of this sounds like a foreign language, I promise you don't need to master it all today. Every story still comes down to three things: a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning shows us your protagonist's ordinary life before change. The midpoint raises the stakes and forces a difficult choice. And the ending is where the growth is put into action. This is where they show up differently than how they started. And don't forget your stack of index cards. Start simple. It's not a detailed map, just a gentle guide to keep you on course. Those road trips from my childhood changed over time. Visiting family, old friends from Air Force bases, theme parks along the way. The destinations were different, but what stayed with me was the skill of navigating. Today, Google Maps does all the work, and I still smile when she reroutes me after I take a side street, mostly out of curiosity. That's plotting a destination, a route, and permission to explore without getting lost. This is one of those topics we could spend days talking about, but the key takeaway is this: planning is the beginning of the journey. Your habit this week? Sit down with pen and index cards or your notes app and decide how your story starts and how it ends. Then connect the two. I promise, if you take the time to plan first, you won't find yourself frozen in front of a blank white screen. If you're interested in any of the plotting books I mentioned, I'll leave a link to my Amazon storefront where I've curated them for you. It's optional, of course, and I do make a small commission, but you can always look them up on your own. And if you're new here and looking for writing habits, encouragement to publish your manuscript, and conversations about the writing life, I'm really glad we found each other. I'll be here every Tuesday with a brand new episode. Make sure you follow or subscribe so you don't miss one. And if today's episode encouraged you, share it with another writer friend. Until then, happy writing, my friends. Again, I'm Portia Leivette, and this is Habits of a Writer.